Hi, this is Dave Chenault with Skylight Systems, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can migrate from InfoPath to great new tools like PowerApps and Flow using our tool i2P Express. I'll take you through the steps you have to go through and quickly explain how we can migrate content that's locked up in XML files and old SharePoint lists into new SharePoint lists that you can use with PowerApps. Let's get started. When you use i2P Express, you're going to go through 8 steps in your migration process. The first one is going to be taking an inventory to find out where are those InfoPath forms, how complex are they, how many are there, who last used it, and who was the last person to work on those templates. Then you can download one of the templates, open it up, map that old file data into a brand new SharePoint list, and then we'll go ahead and create that list for you in the tool. You can export the data out, cleanse it with Excel or Power BI, and finally migrate that data into your new list so you can create the new PowerApps or Flow solution. Here's an old InfoPath form, and this is a pretty complicated form. If you notice, it has 2 repeating sections and some attachments in addition to the main content of that form. We want to get this data out of this old form and into something that looks like this, a brand new PowerApps form with great new capabilities and a long life ahead of it. So let's go ahead and figure out the steps needed to get us from where we started here in this old InfoPath form to a nice PowerApps form that we can use with Flow and other great new modern tools to solve our business problems. Let's get started. The first step involves an inventory of a site or a site collection to find out where are those InfoPath forms and how complex are they? How are we going to attack this problem? So we'll go ahead and put in a team site URL here, as well as username and password to connect. And when I do that, it's going to bring up a screen that lets me do a scan and see all of the InfoPath forms and forms libraries that are associated with that team site. Let's go ahead and find those. I'll pause this and come right back. Okay, we finished our scan, and what you can see is that I've got a list of all of the forms and forms libraries that are in that site. I can see where they are, how many of each of these forms exist in that site, what type it is. Is it a form library or just a simple list? When was the last time it was modified? How complex is it? And by complexity, we mean how many fields are on the form? Does it have repeating sections? Does it have code behind? Things like that. When was the last time that template was modified, and who did the work on it? So if something happened and we have some questions, we know who to talk to. So let's go ahead and pick out one of these that we want to migrate. I think what we'll look at is petty cache. And when I do that, I select it and I will download that template. Okay, I download that template and open it up in the schema mapping component, and I can see all of the names within InfoPath and the type of string or date or double. What kind of field is that? And now I'm going to map it into some names in our new SharePoint list. I'm going to give it an internal name, the display name, and the type of data, mark if it's required or not, and also if it should be part of the default view. Now down here a little lower, I see that there is some grouping going on. And by that, that must be those repeating sections that I saw in that form. So what I'm going to do is create a second list to hold the repeating data and a third list to hold the other part of the repeating data. I can also export out all of the attachments, and then I can import those into my new list. So i2P Express handles regular fields and translates those from fields that might be in InfoPath to something that SharePoint would understand. I can also handle attachments, and I can also handle repeating sections and give those a new list name in the target SharePoint site. Once I've got everything set, I just say create lists. And what it'll do is it'll let me pick out my new SharePoint site where I want to create these new lists. I can also apply their permissions so that I can transfer all of the security settings I had in the old InfoPath to the new one. If I have security set at the item level, I can also maintain that security when I do my data import. Okay, I've got my new migrated petty cache list that I created within i2P Express, and you can see how it's created all of the new fields that I need to translate the data over from the old InfoPath to the new SharePoint list. I've also got a couple other lists that it created for those repeating sections. Before we do the migration, I want you to see what the actual InfoPath form looks like when it's in an XML-based forms library. You will see that every single form is stored as an XML file, and you can see the different field names here and the values within it. Can you imagine trying to move thousands of these files by hand into a SharePoint list so you could use PowerApps? There's just no way you could do that. Rather than go that method, let's go ahead and create a schema mapping, and then we'll export out the data using that map that we created in i2P Express, clean it up, import it, and be ready to go for PowerApps and Flow. Let's keep going. Okay, we're now in the export data module, and I'm going to pick that petty cache that I want to export data from. I'm going to use that mapping that we created, and I can do it in batches. I can make it start with number 0 and go to the first 100, or maybe 500. If you have thousands and thousands of SharePoint forms library items to migrate, do it in batches so that you have a little time to clean up the data and import it and get everything ready to go rather than importing everything all at one time. Let's export the first 100 and see how that goes. Final thing is, notice that I can include item level security if each of those forms has unique permissions on it. I selected the export, and now the app is asking me, where do I want to store that exported data? I'm just going to stick it onto a folder on my C drive so I can open up an Excel and clean it up. Let's go ahead and do that. The operation is completed and the export has occurred. The next thing we're going to do is open it up in Excel and see how that data looks, and maybe we'll do a little cleanup before we import it into those new lists we created. Okay, here's our exported data. You can see that there are some blanks in here. And if we look, the names actually look pretty good. So I think we're in good shape there. But you can see there are some blanks and some kind of funny different things here on the numbers. So there may be some data cleanup that we ought to do before we import this into the new list. Go ahead and always open up the data in Excel. Take a look at it and make sure it's ready to go to import into your new list. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. I'm in the import data section, and what I want to do is import the data into that new list and also tell i2P Express which field we want to use for the title field, because SharePoint always wants a title field with data in it when you enter in data. You can also include item level security if you had permissions set for every single form, and you can load a mapping that you've already saved at an earlier time. The last step would be to import the data, and you select here the import data and the file that we had saved out and cleaned up with Excel. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll take a look at the migrated data set. Okay, the migration occurred, and we can see that we've got 32 entries in the GL payout. This is one of those repeating sections. We've got 15 of the main forms, and that's what we were hoping to see because we exported 15. And then we have 27 entries in the other repeating section. Let's go ahead and open up that migrated petty cache list. And when we do that, we're going to be able to see we have all of the data and the attachments sitting right here for us. So i2P Express was able to migrate the data over with the attachments and also keep things all nice and tidy when we had to export and import in repeating sections as well. Here's the data from the repeating section. And what you're going to notice is that there is a parent ID here. And we use this so that we know how to relate the repeating section to the main form that we migrated over. Because it's very likely you're going to have many of these repeating items in this new list that you need to link back to the main form. And we do that through this migrated petty cache parent ID. We handle all of this for you in the tool. So all you have to do is migrate the data. You say, I'm going to have a child list that I'm going to call GL payout, and we will put in the ID of the parent so that it's easy to get those repeating sections looking good on the new form. Let's finish up by taking a look at that new form I created in PowerApps. Okay, here we are back in the migrated petty cache, and let's go ahead and open up one of these entries and see how the Power App form looks. And there it is. That's what we hope to see. We have a nice Power App form that it's going to be good for years to come, and we can start adding in new forms, etc. I went ahead and created this in PowerApps. Remember that we came from a form that looked like this in InfoPath, and we've now moved over into the new world of PowerApps and Flow using i2P Express. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is Dave Chenault with Skylight Systems, and if you have any questions, just reach out to us at Skylight Systems. You can email us at info@skylightsystems.com or give us a call at 949-529-5785. Thanks for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the video.